All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started with today's virtual tour. So, welcome to all of you watching live, and welcome to those of you who will be watching the replay after this airs live. So, When Harry Met Sally is often ranked as one of the most romantic movies of the modern era. And since we're really close to Valentine's Day, I thought that we might want to spend the next 30 minutes or so delving into this film. Now, only a sliver of this movie takes place in Chicago, but we're still going to claim it because within the time period in which this film takes place in Chicago, we actually learn a whole lot about the film's primary characters, Harry, played by Billy Crystal, of course, and Sally, played by Meg Ryan. And we not only learn just about them and their characterizations, but we do that interestingly through their interactions with food as they are here in Chicago. So as our title suggests for today's virtual tour, we're going to talk about not only where the cast and crew filmed while they were in Chicago, but also the importance of food in this movie. So if you're new to Chicago Movie Tours, I'm Kelly. I run Chicago Movie Tours, and my goal is pretty simple. It is that which is on your screen right there, to help you discover Chicago and the suburbs of this city through film. So if you are interested in more Chicago and film related events, you can always check out chicagomovietours.com after today's virtual program, or follow along on social media at Shy Movie Tours. Now, those of you who've been with me before on these virtual tours know that we like to situate ourselves in relationship to downtown Chicago, or the business district, the Loop district of the city. So you see the pink pin there next to Chicago. That's where we are. So we're going to start there, and we are going to head today south of downtown to Hyde Park, which is about 9 miles south of the Loop area. And we are going to make our way to the main quad at the University of Chicago. So here's a quick little Google Maps look at where we're going to land, right here in the middle of the quad at the University of Chicago. And fair warning, when I pull out my video camera in our next shot here, our virtual tour is going to look quite a bit different than the Google Street View, which you see on your screen right now. All right, so here we go with the help of my camera walking around the University of Chicago. A little bit snowier when I was there. So here we are on the main quad, which consists of some of the very first buildings on the campus of the University of Chicago, dating from the late 1800s. And as we scroll over here or pan over to the left, you'll see the style of some of these buildings, very Gothic in nature. And the defining features of Gothic architecture, those pointed arches, vaulted ceilings, elaborate stonework. Over there to the right, you can see a little bit of that as well. Spires, steeples, for example. All of these features that are really going to allow for height and grandeur is what the Gothic style is going for. So if you're familiar with Westminster Abbey over there on the left-hand side of your screen, that's a good example of Gothic style architecture. But the university apparently based many of the buildings on the quad that we're walking around, like the Gothic-style buildings at Oxford University. So hopefully, as we move around here, you'll see some resemblances between the University of Chicago and that image on the right from Oxford University. Now, the main quad that we're walking around here consists actually of 6 quadrangles, each surrounded by all of these buildings. So I'm going to get us a little bit above the quad so that we can see better how this all works. So here's a drone shot where you can spot between those trees 6 different quadrangles. So there are 2, 2, and then 2, and all of those historic buildings surrounding them. And this area of the University of Chicago is generally considered the heart of the university. And that makes perfect sense, right? It's a lovely area. In fact, Travel and Leisure magazine has also listed the University of Chicago as one of the most beautiful college campuses in the U.S., which you can see there by the screenshot on the right-hand side of your screen. All right, let's get back down on the ground here at the quad and continue walking. So if we look over there to the left, I'll pan over there a little bit for you. That building is a really good example of Gothic architecture. So let's just stop here for a second, remind ourselves a little bit about what this architectural style is all about. So I mentioned a moment ago, pointed arches. You can definitely see that toward the top of the building there. Elaborate stonework, which you can make across the windows in particular. Spires. So all of the top pointy parts of the roof lines there, all working very nicely with Gothic architecture. So as we turn the camera back toward the right here, we're going to be walking down this pathway toward two gates. And if you'll notice, the pathways or the walkways that we are on here at the Quad at the University of Chicago are for pedestrians only. Now, vehicles are permitted during certain hours in this space, but you have to have a permit to bring a car in this area. This rule is going to come in handy in just a second, so keep that in mind. All right, so as we're walking here, we are going to head toward 57th Street, and we are going to make our way through two different gates. So just another quick look at some buildings over there to the right. Here's the first gate that we're going to come across. So this one is called Hull Court Gate, Hull, and I'll stop under here so you can see that a little bit better. All right, so Hull Court Gate. So very wrought iron, the decoration also mimicking the spires that we were just talking about with Gothic architecture. So this is the first gate we're going to pass through, Hull Court. And there's another gate that's a little bit more in our interest though for the film When Harry Met Sally. And that's the stone one that's right ahead here. Little wobbly camera work, so hang on until I get my stabilizer stable. But the gate that's right in front of us is what we're going to consider next. Quite a bit going on this gate as well, so we're going to pause at it in just a second. All right, so this gate is called Cobb Gate, C-O-B-B, and it was built in 1897. And I am going to pause here as well. So you can still see that Gothic style, hopefully, in the arch and the ornamentation that is decorating this gate. But let's look a little closer at what is on Cobb Gate. Hopefully you can see, starting at the base there, two grotesques are these decorative mythical figures. And then as you scan your eyes up the point, you'll see 6 more, plus another one at the very top. So going back to the bottom of the gate, or the bottom of the roof line there of the gate, you have the 2 large grotesques at the bottom, which are supposed to represent admissions officers that control access to the University of Chicago. And then ascending up toward the point, you have the freshmen at the lowest point, the sophomores, the juniors climbing up to the top, and then at the very top you're supposed to have a senior student who has made his or her rightful throne atop this structure. So that's the largest figure at the apex there. And this story has just become part of university lore at the University of Chicago. I have no idea if that's exactly what those grotesques were put there for when the architect designed that, but that's kind of part of legend here at the University of Chicago. All right, so we've got our bearings at the university and walking around the Quad. Let us get into the movie When Harry Met Sally and see where it fits into the campus that we just strolled around. Quick recap for those of you who's been a little while since you've seen When Harry Met Sally. So we are talking about a 1989 romantic comedy directed by Rob Reiner over there on the far left-hand side of your screen. And next to him is the writer, Nora Ephron. And at the left-hand side of your screen now, you can see the very first shot of When Harry Met Sally. It has the location, the University of Chicago, and it has the date in which these two characters are going to meet. So this movie then, by Rob Reiner, written by Nora Ephron, is going to follow these two characters, Harry and Sally, from the time they meet on the Quad at the University of Chicago. You can see them there at the bottom left-hand corner. And this is where Harry is going to be catching a cross-country ride with Sally. And then we're going to see them move through about 12 years of encounters with each other in New York City. And ultimately, this movie is raising one question, and that is this: can men and women just be friends? So when Harry Met Sally filmed in Chicago for just a few days, actually, in September of 1988. And I've pulled a casting call for you so that you can kind of see what they were looking for photo doubles. So here we can read in the highlighted text: Harry, this is Sally, will be shooting here for only a few days later this month, but the Geddes agency has to find photo doubles for several of the stars. They want to see your picture if you're a 5'7", long curly-haired, 140-pound guy who looks like Billy Crystal, or a 5'7.5", 120-pound, long blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman who looks like Meg Ryan. So if you fit the bill, perhaps you could have put in your picture to be a double here. Now, in this casting call, aside from its purpose, of course, to find photo doubles for this, it's also telling us the movie's original title, which you can see there highlighted: Harry, This is Sally. So obviously some changes were made from the casting call to the final product, as is usually the case with film. Now, even if you've never seen the movie, you likely know the scene that takes place in New York City's Katz's Deli. And you probably also know the film's most memorable and probably most quoted line, which is delivered by Rob Reiner's mother.
I'll have what she's having.
So surely you remember that, hopefully. So if you have ever visited Katz's Deli in New York City, you might have looked up and seen this sign above the table where they filmed that says, "Where Harry Met Sally. Hope you have what she had. Enjoy." Now we're going to come back to Katz's Deli in just a minute in relationship to a Super Bowl ad that just aired a couple of days ago. But let's go back to the quad at the University of Chicago, because as Harry and Sally make their way from the main quad at the University of Chicago to New York City, we can note three things. So you can see that top screenshot there from the film itself, where you have Harry and Sally's car going through the two gates that we just walked through, and then my screenshot from my video camera at the bottom. So three things that we can notice at this section of the film. Number one, they are driving off the quad, right? Through Hall Court Gate, through Cobb Gate, but this is primarily a pedestrian area, I should say. So during that era, they're actually doing something that is not typically done at the University of Chicago. Secondly, when they get off campus into downtown Chicago, which you can see a shot of here, there's a small faux pas. And those of you who are from Chicago are realizing that's not the right way that they're traveling. And this Chicago movie review points that out exactly. So I'm going to blow up the highlighted text a little bit for you so that you can read it better. And it says here that they drive off campus and stock footage has them coming into downtown Chicago along Lakeshore Drive from the north, putting the University of Chicago campus in Evanston, Wilmette, or someplace north of its South Side home. So they're driving the wrong way, right? So they drive off the quad instead of walk off the quad. They're driving the wrong way on Lakeshore Drive, as you can see in the bottom left. And also we notice that the time in the car that they spend with each other in Chicago is filled with bickering, with musings about male and female relationships, and a lot of grape spitting and eating.
Look, there's a map on the visor that I've marked to show the locations where we can change shifts.
Grape?
No, I don't like to eat between meals.
I'll roll down the window.
Oh, she's just disgusted, right? All right, well, grapes are actually what we are interested in today, and then all the food that comes after that in the movie itself. All right, going back to Nora Ephron. Again, she's the screenwriter for When Harry Met Sally. And as much as creating comedy was important to Nora Ephron, so was food. And you can see that in virtually all of the screenplays she wrote or the movies she directed. The New York Times once even wrote that for Nora Ephron, quote, food was real, front and center in her work. She used food to define characters in a stroke. And if you look at just some of the film posters that I have listed for you here, just starting with Sleepless in Seattle, for example, one of the most memorable parts of Meg Ryan's character in Sleepless in Seattle is the way she peels an apple all at once. And Tom Hanks's character even notes that, right? And that suggests that her character is patient and solid. And that's exactly what we find toward the end of the film whenever the two pair with each other. If you look at Heartburn there on the bottom left with Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson, that film is about a cookbook writer. Meryl Streep's character plays that, and there are multiple recipes that are cited in that film. And then Julie and Julia, right to the right of that, also starring Meryl Streep. That is a film, of course, entirely about food. Now, I've read that the grape spitting scene in When Harry Met Sally actually comes from Billy Crystal and not Nora Ephron, because while filming in Chicago, Crystal apparently said, I can just be spitting the seeds out the window. That's going to make Harry seem more abrupt. And even if Crystal did come up with this 10 seconds of film, Ephron clearly sees food as significant to the story she wrote of When Harry Met Sally. Look at all of these scenes, including the most famous one there in the middle, all of which take place around food, around restaurants, dinner tables, ordering methods, and each of which is actually defining the characters in their journey in Chicago, but also in New York City. So when Harry is spitting grapes, as he's doing all around me here, Sally is horrified. Look at Meg Ryan's face there. So he's going to offer her some, and hopefully you remember what she says. I don't like to eat in between meals. So Sally's relationship with her food is very structured, very not hurried, not haphazard, which reflects the character of Sally, right? Also very structured in the way that she presents herself and her personality. Remember perhaps how she orders food in the second scene above, the one that is just to the left of me. She says, I'll have the chef's salad with the oil and vinegar on the side and the apple pie a la mode, but I'd like the pie heated and I don't want the ice cream on top. I want it on the side, and I'd like strawberry instead of vanilla if you have it. If not, then no ice cream, just whipped cream, but only if it's real. If it's out of a can, then nothing. So this is, of course, one main reason that Harry, at the very end of this film, on New Year's Eve, tells us that he loves her, tells her, of course, as well.
How about this way? I love that you get cold when it's 71 degrees out. I love that it takes you an hour and a half to order a sandwich. I love that you get a little crinkle above your nose when you're looking at me like I'm nuts. I love that after I spend a day with you, I can still smell your perfume on my clothes. And I love that you are the last person I want to talk to before I go to sleep at night.
So it takes you an hour and a half to order a sandwich is one of the things that he loves about her. And Rob Reiner, interestingly, recalls when he and Nora Ephron were working on parts of this script, they went out to lunch and she ordered just like that. And Rob Reiner recalls this: I can't believe the qualifications you have on how the dish should be served. Let's put it right in the script. So we did. So that entire scene of them sitting at the diner where she orders the apple pie, potentially a la mode, comes directly from Nora Ephron and her relationship with food. So next time you watch When Harry Met Sally, perhaps notice how its representation of food, as you can see all around me here, which starts in Chicago with those grapes, helps to define the characters and the situations in which they find themselves. And in this film, food does that so much, defining the characters in which and the situations in which they find themselves, that for last week's Super Bowl, Hellman's recreated the iconic Katz's Deli scene from When Harry Met Sally. Here, however, Sally's satisfaction, shall we say, actually results from dousing her turkey sandwich with Hellman's mayo. So if you missed it, here's the quick recap of the newest version of When Harry Met Sally in Katz's Deli.
I can't believe they let us back in this place.
Oh, no good?
No.
Oh. There we go.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, boy.
So good. Oh, it is so.
This one's real.
Oh.
Now that is a sandwich. I'll have what she's having.
All right. So hopefully you caught that during the Super Bowl. If not, there you go. As I was looking at this commercial again, I was noticing 4 details that coincide with the movie or are attempting to coincide with the movie. Number 1, Meg Ryan's character is eating turkey just as she is, a turkey sandwich as she is in When Harry Met Sally, and he is eating pastrami just as he is in the film itself. If you'll notice from the screenshot on the left and the screenshot from the advertisement, they're sitting at the same table in Katz's Deli. I also noticed it was kind of funny, the soda sign above both of at the top left-hand corner of both screenshots there. Very different in price from 1989 to 2025. We have 80 cents for a soda versus $3.95 for a soda. And a third thing that is coinciding with the movie, of course, is that famous line, "I'll have what she's having," which is delivered not by Roy Bronner's mother, but by Sydney Sweeney, the actress. And you also have a little nod to Billy Crystal's character with what Billy Crystal is wearing there, that classic cable knit fisherman's sweater. So sort of, right? Sort of wearing the same thing. So on the far left, you have from the film itself, and then the advertisement on the right. So even a $10 million Super Bowl ad just really couldn't find a good replica for that sweater that he wears in the movie. And when asked if he still had the sweater, Billy Crystal said he thinks he either lost it or donated it. He says, "I made a donation. I believe it was to UCLA's theater department with tons of clothes for costumes. I have a feeling it's there. I wish I had that sweater." So no longer does he have the exact sweater, but they certainly tried to make a little nod to it. And funny enough, continuing with this Super Bowl ad, this is a screenshot of the website of Katz's Deli from yesterday. And you can see here there's a "What's She Having" sandwich package that you could have ordered up until Super Bowl Sunday. So Hellman's and Katz's Deli teamed up to bring the sandwiches featured in the ad to fans across the country. You didn't have to be in New York. You could get this from wherever you were. So if you scroll down here, let me see if I can move it. Yeah. So there's a picture of Hellman's mayonnaise very prominently placed next to the Katz's sandwich there. And it features the main ingredients. There's a recipe card to make Sally's exact turkey sandwich order. Each kit, as you can see, maybe I've scrolled a little bit too far down, but $120 for each kit. That comes with free shipping, and it can feed about 4 to 6 people. But what's really funny is that in social media marketing for the last several years, Katz's Deli explicitly asks its customers and patrons not to use mayo on its sandwiches. This is from Facebook. This is from about 2018. "Please don't put mayo on our pastrami," they ask, "unless you're from the Bronx, in which case you do whatever you want." And another one, similar in nature from Kat, says, "Yes, you can have mayo, but just remember it comes with abuse." So kind of like coming to Chicago and putting that ketchup on a hot dog, right? So it's quite funny to me that Katz and Hellman's have partnered up, but in reality, they don't really prefer that you have the mayonnaise on their sandwiches. All right, so as we start to wrap up here, once when I was a film professor, I taught an entire class on 2 of the most profitable filmmakers in Hollywood that were also women. That is Nancy Meyers on the far left-hand side of your screen and Nora Ephron, who we've been talking about today on the right-hand side of your screen. And in this course, we actually spent an entire week just on Nora Ephron's love of food. So that's the cover of the syllabus. This is page 2, where you have our characters Harry and Sally bookending the course expectations there. And I just point this out because, needless to say, there's a lot more about food that we could cover in relationship to Nora Ephron and her films, and just When Harry Met Sally in general. But I think we've met our goals for today's virtual tour. Chicago, and Food, and When Harry Met Sally. So we explored the movie a bit, where the cast and crew filmed, of course, at that short period in 1988 here at the University of Chicago. We also talked a little bit about the importance of food in this movie, and obviously to Nora Ephron's life and work. And then I added how that translates 36 years later, can you believe it, to a Super Bowl ad for 2025. So there you go, Chicago and Food and When Harry Met Sally. I do have other programs that are similar to this coming up, some of which are virtual, some of which are in person. I think I have put a virtual one up here. I believe this one is virtual. Mardi Gras and Movies in the Midwest. If you did not know, I'm originally from Louisiana, so we're going to bring a little bit of Louisiana into the Midwest for this program. That's next Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then Black Movie History in Chicago, Cinematic Milestones and Sacred Grounds. That's going to be toward the end of February. That's at 7 p.m. That you can join us there as well. So I'm going to head over to the chat, see if there are any questions or comments that you might have had about When Harry Met Sally or Hellman's Mayonnaise or Nora Ephron or the University of Chicago. And then I appreciate your being here. Thank you so much. Hi, Nance.